In today's episode of the No-Valo Round Table, we're going to be discussing mastering your study techniques. I'm joined today by No-Valo facilitators, Tabiseng Mabuya, who's a chartered accountant in the banking industry, Ronewa Mpepu, who is an educational psychologist and also a facilitator here at No-Valo. And lastly, we will have Rensuna Maluleke, who is an audit manager and also facilitates some of the study skills here at No-Valo. I'm excited for today's episode because are you a student who perhaps thinks rereading certain things over and over again works for you? Do you perhaps cram? Do you perhaps do all nighters and don't sleep enough? We will hear from our facilitators what their thoughts are on the techniques that perhaps you are applying and are not so effective for your studying. Can't wait. Good day. Welcome to the fourth episode of the No-Valo Round Table. In today's episode, we are going to be discussing mastering your exam as well as your study techniques. I have with me experts in this, and they will be part of the conversation that we will be having today. With me, I have, and I will ask them to introduce themselves and in what capacity they are joining us today, as they are also some of the facilitators that we have here at No-Valo.
Hello, my name is Ronewa Mpefu and I'm an educational psychologist registered with the Health Profession Council of South Africa.
My name is Tabiseng Mabuya and I'm a chartered accountant in the banking field.
Hi, my name is Rensuna Maluleke. I'm currently an audit manager at one of the audit firms and I am pursuing the APC board exam this year.
Great stuff. So it sounds as though we have great experts that are joining us today. And to kick off the conversation, I want each of you to contribute and tell me, what is it that when students go to university, one is often told that intelligence matters. How much does intelligence matters, or does it matter more how you are able to study effectively? And I'm going to start with Rinsuna first.
So I've learned when I started in varsity, transitioning from high school into varsity, that it's not much about how smart I am or how intelligent I am in the subject matter, but more about how I approach my studying and what strategies I will apply for each kind of subject. And that if I don't understand a concept, it doesn't really speak to my intelligence. It kind of speaks to how I would be able to apply my knowledge that I've learned during my study period in an exam. So I definitely feel that it's more a strategy than how you feel you're smart or intelligent.
Tabiseng, your thoughts?
I think for me, it's more about hard work than intelligence. And the reason why I say that is because most students that I mentor always tell me that, oh my goodness, I got 7 distinctions, 6 distinctions in high school. And then when they get to university, when they experience failure for the first time, it's very difficult for them to tackle that. Yeah. And I always tell them that in university, you're taught skills about life. That failure does happen, but it's about how you bounce back and not about failure being that identity. So I think for me, you need to really just be a hard worker and about the strategies that you apply in your study.
Yeah, I agree with what they all said. It's oftentimes we think intelligence matters because, you need to have a certain APS score in order for you to get to university. But it's not just that. You need to understand the way in which you learn and retain information in order for you to fully succeed in institution. So it's not purely your intelligence, but how you do things in order for you to learn and apply what you've learned is the biggest thing that one needs to focus on.
Okay, so how you study, more important, the strategies that you apply over just relying on what you would think your natural gifts of intelligence. Now, Renewa, I want to know from you, let's reflect back to when you were a student. When you think about those times when you were a student, what were some of the biggest mistakes that you did as a student, and how did those affect your results?
I was speaking to them earlier, like the passive repetition, like the fact that I feel like maybe familiarity with certain concept will help me to master. It doesn't work. So I just was sitting there reading and reading and reading and thinking that, oh, water. So if I know this term water, when it comes in the exam, I'll remember. So for me, it was just passive repetition, honestly, and it never worked. It really didn't work at all. I had to master what I was, yes, to get things right. So yeah, passive repetition for me, it didn't work out at all.
And you, Ntabiseng, what was your mistakes that you felt you made as a student?
Thinking I have enough time to study. Until the last minute, saying that no, tomorrow I'll start. Oh, when tomorrow comes. When tomorrow comes, it's just a lot. I think the mistake that I made is not starting sooner.
Yeah.
Because that's when I'll literally crash out to say, listen, I'm not leaving this chair until I understand.
Yeah.
And I'd literally fight with Ukoko and my parents to say, listen, don't disturb me. When I'm in the zone, I'll come out when I need to eat or go to the bathroom or anything like that, because I didn't have enough time to prepare, and that gave me anxiety. I think if I could go back, I would literally start earlier than later.
Now, because did you really not have enough time to prepare?
I had more than enough time.
Okay.
I just procrastinated.
Okay. And that leads me to wanting to ask you about procrastination. What do you really think is behind procrastination? Is it a sense of being lazy from people, or is there something deeper perhaps that you think might be causing people to procrastinate?
It can be twofold. It's either you are lazy and you've gotten comfortable with where you are in terms of your marks, or you fear starting because you don't know that topic. Yes. So the fear of, if I start, I won't understand and I have to put in more work. And that fear of, okay, what if I fail even if I start? So, yeah.
A lot playing in the mind. Rinsuna, what do you think? Were you a procrastinator?
I think we've all been procrastinators in our journey, so definitely yes. And one of my biggest mistakes would have been the cram, pass, forget method, where I would cram, but where it comes a time for me to apply it, then it's challenging for me to apply the concept, right? Another thing was me studying for long hours, thinking I'm retaining the information, whereas I'm not, right? Where I'd be sitting for 5 to 6 hours at a go, but I'm not actually retaining the information, which kind of then leads to a mental block sometimes. But yeah, I just wanted to also add to the point about procrastination, right? Sometimes it's you not wanting to deal with the friction of uncomfortability, right? So sometimes I'd find myself at a desk trying to understand a difficult concept, but I just can't, I ruffle feathers there, there's a friction. And sometimes I'll just walk away from the desk and not wanting to deal with that. So I'll procrastinate and not want to actually deal with the difficult concept. So yeah, I think those are my difficult.
I don't know, in your world where you deal with a lot of students who are procrastinating, why are they procrastinating? Or why do we as humans? I think all of us, as said, we've been through this.
That's true. I'll differ a bit with them. So procrastination is more of a coping mechanism. It's an emotional regulation strategy. You don't want to do the task because of the certain way it makes you feel. So you're avoiding the anxiety, the overwhelm. So you rather not do it. So that's why people procrastinate. It's not necessarily laziness. It's just avoidance. I don't want to deal with it because I feel a certain way. So yeah. That's why we often procrastinate and don't want to do things. We are trying to regulate ourselves. So it's about learning ways in which we can regulate other than procrastination.
And then the deadline comes, and then other emotions come, and the anxiety, and you're like, oh man, now.
So yeah, it's about learning a different coping strategy when you have a lot. So breaking down tasks, break them down until it doesn't make you feel like you're anxious or overwhelmed. Chapter at a time.
To that point, it's also like studying is a delayed gratification, So like we seek instant gratification, and studying doesn't give that.
True.
So sometimes you kind of just need to understand the fact that, hey, the reward is gonna come later.
Definitely.
And actually just kind of sit with with that uncomfortability, and just tell yourself that you'll get the reward later when you pass that exam.
That's true. And hence breaking it down helps you. So if today you want to study chapter 1, put that down, note it down, and have an alarm so that whenever you're done, your dopamine levels will increase because I can see that,
that gratification
exactly. I was able to do chapter 1. That's amazing. So that's how you can also soothe yourself as you're studying.
Yeah. And on that, as you guys bring it up and the whole thing of instant gratification and delayed gratification, we know that the biggest distractions that young people have now, I'm so glad I wasn't studying full time in the times of TikTok and Instagram and because these are now big distractions. And as you said, people then spend a lot of time on these social media platforms and all of this because there is a sense of gratification and the dopamine effect that they get from consistently scrolling. So when you look at this and with the current generation, how do you think all these distractions and notifications affect their concentration and them being able to study effectively? Saying, what are your thoughts on that, on the always available and the pings and everything, phone vibrating and just can't even sit in a lecture for 40 minutes without picking it up?
I think I relate to you in terms of I'm so glad I wasn't born in that era. Because I had my first phone when I was 19. My parents were so strict, right? So it came with a level of discipline. But when I engage with the students who are actively social on their social media platforms, I always ask them, what are you willing to sacrifice for the future that you want for yourself? Right? Because when it comes to social media, it is like an instant gratification. It's the now. But then you have to have a vision in terms of the future. You need to have a vision in terms of where you want to be. So I always say I'd rather have a sacrifice for a year than a lifetime of regret because of the goals that I want to set for myself. Because now if I'm spending time on TikTok, I'm spending time on Instagram, and I'm spending time on literally just being out there with my friends and all of that, it's chowing my study time. And it's chowing as a student, it's going to delay my progress because at the end of the day it's going to affect my marks, and that means I have to either repeat a module or I have to repeat a year and all of that. But that's not the sacrifice that I want for myself. So rather sacrifice socials for the life that you want.
No, I think that is a very, very true thing of you would rather that bit of sacrifice for now, but I do think that young people struggle to get that message across effectively so that they can start applying it, which to what you had said earlier when you were looking back when you were a student, that you think that you have limited time for the amount of studying. I mean, for the journey that you guys have taken, in undergrad, you think that there's limited time, but then when you get to PGDA, the time factor from a undergrad to a postgraduate level, and even for you, is a fact of now you realize, no, undergrad I had a lot of time. Now I really don't have time. But how do you think students can effectively manage that overwhelming feeling of workload that essentially they have, Ronewa, that especially as they move from, even from your first year? I mean, the jump we all know from high school into your first year in terms of how much, people think matric has got a lot of work and then they get to first year university and it's a whole other thing. How do you manage that overwhelm of workload?
I think it's just by validate yourself that, indeed, this is not high school. It's a different environment. So accept and see the reality that you're currently in. Because the more you avoid and want to think, I'm still in the same place I was at last year, that's when more challenges will continue to arise. So accept that, this is where I am now. And then break down material. So let's say in terms of studying, break down content according to how you'll understand it. Learn about what you're good at and what you're not, and accept that. Find ways in which you are able to ground yourself as well. There are many things you can find online. Seek for help as well. Find people in which they communicate with how you learn, how you do things. I think the more you build community, the more you will be grounded and know that I'm not alone. We are all in this together. So find your community, because that's important. You don't have family here. It's a totally new space. So find your people, create your community, and then doing those small things, you'll be able to find your place in where you're at now.
And just to add on to that, I think one of the most important things as a student to do is set boundaries with people around you. Because now they're going to expect you to show up in the way that you were when you had free time. So now it's about teaching your friends that, okay, when it's time to work, it's time to work. When it's time to play, it's time to play. But also with your family, that when it's study time, I study between these times, so don't disturb me during those times. I'll reach out to you when I take a break, but just respect the fact that I can't attend certain events. I can't usually be present. I need to show up for myself, and I think that's important.
Yeah, I also think that it's quite important. I mean, in this world that we live in now, like you mentioned, that there's so much information, right? And also in our syllabus and curriculums, there's so much information and resources as well. And I think, I'll use an analogy of the auditing space, right? You have an audit file of multiple line items, but not all of them are important. You kind of have to identify those that are material and that have risks attached to them, right? And so what I would do is basically kind of go through the different themes and subjects and kind of find out, okay, which ones are the material ones, which are the ones that are big, which are the ones that I don't understand, and kind of sift that information from importancy, and prioritize them in that manner as well.
There's nothing as worst as being comfortable with a topic that is not material, and you get to the exam and the one you were uncomfortable with and completely avoiding is question number 1. And your heart just, everything, it's like just switches off, and it's like, oh my goodness. Because I think that is such an important thing of, you need to sit with the uncomfortable. And as students, I think one of the biggest mistake that students also make is spending too much time with things either that they already know or they think they are comfortable with. The lecturer is not sitting there thinking, oh, Ronewa likes this topic and I'm going to ask this topic. Tabiseng likes this one or is comfortable with. No, they're looking at what is the actual outcome to be achieved here. And students need to also start understanding that. And when we're talking about how to study, and you even spoke about the mistakes that you did when you were in varsity, when it comes to rereading things. In the accounting field, I know that tests and exams are open book. And the highlighting effect, thinking that I've highlighted and I'm good to go. So what are some of the mistakes with these studying techniques, your rereading, your just reliance on highlighting, and what should students be doing instead of doing that?
Students are already on the right track, really. Oftentimes when I speak to them, they're already doing them, but again, not having the vocabulary of naming the study techniques that they're doing. So we have many out there where we have students who learn visually, auditory, they have to move around, they have to talk. Those are some of the things that they can utilize. And best way is be focus on all of them. Don't just focus on, oh, I'm a visual learner, I need to see things. Read, speak, teach someone else, teach a teddy bear, go teach an auntie who sells mascopas and ask them, can I please speak to you about global warming, for example? And speak from your mind and what you remember. And if you are missing certain points, go back and look at the depth of this term that I was teaching the other person and I was not able to really give them the full detail of this term. So there are many terminologies of it. We have the Pomodoro method, we have the Feynman. There are many things out there, but find what works for you and utilize all of them. Don't just focus on one. I think that will be very good for one to start with.
And I think I'm glad that you bring that up, because we find very often that young people also don't know what their learning styles are. So, in one of our modules here at No-Valo, we actually do like a bit of an assessment to see what is your stronger learning style. But as you said, just because you are an auditory learner doesn't mean that's the only way that you study, because as well, some things differ based on, what the subject matter is. Somebody studies in physics, might study a certain way for physics, but that might be different in how they apply themselves for chemistry and so forth. So it's also about, for each module that you have, finding out what works for me here. And just because that's the dominant one doesn't mean it's the only one.
That's true.
As well. Because I think even in just as adults, because we're continuing to learn, we are all learners of life. And in that's where we start seeing how somebody is comfortable in doing a PowerPoint presentation versus somebody's comfortable in speaking of a PowerPoint instead of making it. Because I've seen other people's PowerPoints and I'm like, that looks amazing. But me and PowerPoint are not friends, but I can speak. Do the PowerPoint for me and tell me to go speak about it. Happy to
and that's where we see study skills also playing. You see them in the world of work, where if you love visuals, you love diagrams, you will excel in that at your workplace. And then you have a team that is excellent in other things. So teamwork helps. So it speaks to each other, really.
The collaboration. Use collaboration effectively. And I think that when you're saying that there are all of these different methods and techniques that one has. With the techniques, firstly, there's one, we love it here at No-Valo. We love the Pomodoro technique. It's like our go-to. And it's what you said earlier about studying for 6 hours. But when you're in varsity, nobody tells you this. Nobody says it is not practical. It is not humanly practical to just sit for 6 hours and think, I'm going to be fine. So firstly, explain what the Pomodoro technique is to the audience, because there might be somebody who doesn't know and it's so easily accessible. And what are some of the techniques that you guys have applied that have worked from what you did and you think you did wrong to then where you changed and you applied something different?
So in simple terms, it's where you are studying for 25 minutes and take a break for 5 minutes. So you continuously do that, basically, to just train your body. You are trying to teach yourself that I can sit for 25 minutes, take a break, and then come back again. In that studying, you're using the different techniques in which you learn. So in simple terms, 25 minutes study, 5 minutes break. That's how you do it. And then you'll see that you've studied for longer and you've mastered the information. Because, we have to understand that cognitive fatigue is a thing. You can't sit for an hour if you're not understanding what you're doing. It's, again, passive repetition. Are you really mastering? Are you sitting there for the sake of what will the parents say, or you're sitting there for yourself? So studying 25 minutes and then 5 minutes break in simple terms. And again, that's another study technique. Like, if you can't explain a term in simple terms for other people to understand, that means you don't understand it. So make sure you are able to explain it in simple terms for other people to understand what I did with the Pomodoro. It's a very long explanation, but simple form, 25 minutes, 5 minutes break. Basically, that's what it is.
And I like you spoke about the explain to in the simplest terms. And I find this very difficult, because I remember my grandparents would ask, what do you do? And how do you explain, when I was still an auditor, how do you explain to your grandmother what auditing is? And I think that's such a key thing. Can you explain it to a 5-year-old or can you explain it to your grandparents? Whatever making it as simple as possible. Tabi, what are some of the techniques that you've applied that have worked for you?
I think being comfortable with knowing that I don't know everything when I'm studying. And not sitting in that comfort, but asking myself, what am I doing about it? I think one of the things that helped me was every single time we were to get like a list of topics that we're doing during that year for a specific module, that's when next to each topic I'll write, okay, strength, weakness. And then I'll highlight all my strengths in green, all my weaknesses in red, because I know that I need to go back to that. So now when I have a game plan, my study roster is called a game plan, right? So we strategize. Like, I'm going into the field now.
It's like a coach. You become your own coach.
So I'm like, the game plan is I need to start with my weakest topic. And I know in accounting, for me, I'll make an accounting example. It would be your first 16, your first 15, your leases and your revenue, right? Because it's a very major topic, but also it's very diverse. But then I have to ask myself, in that specific module and topic, what don't I know exactly? Because I can't not know everything. There's a specific thing that I don't know. So that's when I break it down to say, okay, looking at my previous exams, I got this wrong, but what part did I get wrong? Then I'll write a list of the things that I got wrong, so that I know when I study, I start with my weaknesses. So when it comes to my strengths, I'm comfortable. So then I'm sitting in the aspect of I'm comfortable in knowing that now I don't know everything, but I'm comfortable with everything. So if the lecturers now are asking it in various ways, I'm able to answer because I understand why I'm studying what I'm studying. So now when you're going to study, don't just say, okay, I need to cram plus forget, because every single time I need to cram. But you need to ask yourself, why are they asking me this, and what is this teaching me? So this is broken down by defining that specific topic. If it's going to be maybe capital budget or assets, what is an asset? What is this? So that when you are studying that, you know exactly what you are dealing with.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. You said that you don't need to know everything, but you need to have a level of comfort with everything that could come out.
100%.
And you, Rinzuna?
For me, it's definitely being aware of the fact that passive learning can create this illusion of you knowing information or competence.
Illusion.
Yeah, an illusion of what is it called? I think in behavioral science they call it illusion of fluency. The idea that you understand a concept, like she mentioned earlier, but when you get to an exam, you actually can't apply it, right? So just being aware of the fact that passive learning is not going to help me with anything, right? Well, not anything per se, but just to know that I need to do something active, right? And for me, it has been active recalling. It also has been visual mapping as well, especially with complex concepts. I mean, you'll be reading a long text, but there's a number of paragraphs there that you actually quite can't understand or don't really understand. And what I normally do is kind of find a video that will explain the concept, right? Or actually try draw it out for myself to kind of visualize what does this thing look like so I can understand it. And then another thing would be if I learn a concept, I go out in the world and I look for that concept. And for instance, if a control in auditing, for instance, is access controls, right? So I'll walk into the mall and I'll be like, oh, there's a camera, that's an access control. Oh, there's a security guard, that's a control. You know, so I kind of then take it out into the world to kind of reinforce the concept. So yeah, I think those are the kind of things that have helped me to break down difficult concepts and information. And just being very aware that passive learning, it doesn't really help.
You didn't know the words to these things, passive learning. You just sit there, you're just like, because they work. And unfortunately, that's the danger of the difference of high school and university, because they worked for us. Cramming worked for some of us in high school. You know, I was like, I want science out of my life, and I must pass science, and therefore I must just do what is required. And once it's out, it's out. Why do I want to remember scientific? I was like, done. But now, and especially, I think it's so key, because when you're in university, you're studying towards a career. You are not studying toward, there is no end goal of when I graduate, my mind must switch off from this thing. Or even when I pass first year, my mind is going to, you pass first, second year, whatever has been learned the previous year, you need to apply onto this year. And I think that's why also the gap between undergrad and postgrad is that the first thing that postgrad will highlight to you is, do you know your foundation? And your foundation is undergrad. And when you don't know your foundation, that's when you'd already feel so overwhelming, the postgrad, because it's just like everything terminology has now accelerated to the next level, and you aren't actually aware that your weaknesses or what's now happening, what you're struggling with, is actually because the foundation hasn't been layered strongly.
And the risk to that is like, if you feel that your foundation is not strong, right? You tend to then want to go back to your undergrad notes and then want to like read through those again to kind of reinforce it, you know? But then it's like kind of wasting time and falling behind with the actual program that you are within, you know? So yeah, there is a definite risk in you going back because your foundation is,
Can I bring in a solution to that? For students now with social media, we have AI now. You can go to AI and type the topic and help. You basically have to prompt it basically to just summarize things you learned the past 3 years. And you can even hear it instead of just reading it. So a solution to students who feel like, yay, I still need help, they go to AI and prompt AI according to the topic. I'm not an accountant, sorry, I didn't study accounting. So I'll go with like your normal general topic, global warming or cognitive behavioral therapy. What is it from year 1, 2, and 3 that they did that I think it will be important for me to know now in postgrad? And then listen to what they're saying. I think that's another way that in which you can just help yourself to bring yourself to understand what's happening. You utilize AI.
Yeah, and I think it is, that is a whole conversation on how to best utilize AI. And of course, there are things, there are these memes that go around and say, I'm so proud of myself that I got my degree without AI. But of course, now the generation needs to also discover, how do we best utilize that? Of course, in an ethical way. I think the ethics behind it is going to be interesting for the future going forward.
Sure.
Institutions as well. How do you test things to really get the application out instead of what is just information that, especially for qualifications that are, I want to, essay led and so forth, that write an essay, because now literally they put it online and the essay comes out. And I've literally seen this, and you'll read 50 essays and you'll be reading the same thing. Over and over and over again. But it is unfortunate. There are positives in the current times, but there's also a lot of challenges that some of us might not have faced previously. And one of the things as a student, what's required, especially now when you come into university, is discipline and consistency. So what does an effective routine look like? How should a student consider, you come to university, and in high school you had 7 subjects, and now you come to university in semester 1 and you have 10 modules that you are looking at, but you still have your family, you have friends, you have life. There's still life. You don't become a robot book that is just there to study. So how did you guys tackle routines, and what are some of the things that you are sharing with students and those that you engage with on having an effective study routine?
I'll go on this one.
Yeah.
So, like you said, you're not a robot, right? There's school, there are things that you like, there's your family, etc. Right? You have a calendar that is January to December. Always pinpoint those important dates to you. Right, whether it's within your studying, right, your exams, you put that in a calendar. You put birthdays, you put weddings, all of that. That's what I do in my life now, actually. And then you work from month and then into a week, right, and actually then have a timetable for that week, right, and say, okay, this week my non-negotiable, I need to go to the gym. Right, and then you put that you time block it, and you say, this is my time for the gym. You time block the fact that I have classes, and then you time block the fact that I need to eat and sleep as well, because we actually need sleep, guys. So I definitely would say scheduling is the key to it, and don't leave things to chance, because if you leave things to chance, that's where the procrastination comes in. That's where you find yourself kind of rambling through, what must I do now? And your time just kind of swifts away. So I would definitely say that use a calendar, use scheduling, use your phone. There's a calendar on the phone, because we're always on our phones. I know some people like paper, so if you like paper, get a diary and jot those things down. So I'll definitely say that don't leave things to chance, and know where you need to be, what you're doing with who.
It's not documented. It's not happening. That's where it came from. Because I know right now, I always, even with my friends, if it's not in my calendar, if you did not receive an invite, sorry, it's not happening. It probably. And like you, I'm also like that, where gym is in my calendar.
Yes.
All these certain things, because you create a bit of structure. Tabi Singh, does that work for you? What do you do?
Yeah, I wing it.
That is honest. I love it.
I need to be consistent. But one thing I realized that when I was a student, I had peak study times.
Yes.
So for me, my peak study time was sleeping at 8 o'clock and waking up at like 2 or 3:30, right? Because it's 8 hours of sleep or less than that, if it's 7 maximum or minimum. And then my peak study time would be 2 onwards because number one, it's quiet. It's not really that busy. Everybody is asleep, so there's no noise around me. And I knew that, okay, if I'm studying at that time, I'm studying a topic that is heavy and that I can grasp very quickly. Yes, because it's my effective time. And then after that, I would take another nap because now it's going to be class, right? And then I'll take a nap and then wake up, get ready to go to class, and then I'll go to class. But when I come back, now it's me time because remember, I locked in earlier and now I have available time. Available time will be to cook, to catch up with my family and call them, and then maybe go out with some friends, but I come back. But when I come back, now I need to ask myself, okay, what am I touching on that is a light topic? Because now my energy has depleted and I'm very tired, but then I still need to study and lock in. But then if it's something that is light, as capital budgets for me was very light, then I would study that for maybe 2 hours and then go to bed. Because you need to capitalize on your peak times and your slower burn down times. But also, one of the things that also helps is having a slow day. You have 7 days a week. My slow day would be in the middle, which is Wednesday. So meaning that I would study during the other days for like 8 hours if maybe I don't have classes. So like this block week now at university. But then on Wednesday, I sleep later and I wake up maybe at 10 or 11. And then I start studying from 1 o'clock onwards because now I'm allowing my body to rest. Because I feel like we crash out a lot of times. I crashed out so many times. So when I wrote Sana, I could only remember to write my name. Everything else. And I looked at the invigilator. I wanted to cry. He's like, just write something, mama. And I'm just like, I'm fatigued. And because I cross-nighted. And I realized the hard way that I need to incorporate rest. So for me, it's about identifying when my peak times are and when my slow burn times are. And then when I have breaks in between, catch up with family, catch up with a friend, take a walk. You don't have to like go out to, a concert or whatever. No, nothing hectic.
Yeah.
Just go take a walk to the mall, take a walk maybe on the road or whatever. And just catch up and just have a husa moment.
A husa moment.
I just love what they said. Like they learned and mastered who they are by actually living the life. So again, you can't be perfect. The first month will be weird. You will not know what works for you. You won't know that cross-nighting is something that you can't do now in university. It worked in high school, but not university. So I just love how it's relatable. They went through something and they learned from it. Like how she blacked out in the exam room. Like it happens because sleep is important. In order for you to remember information, you have to sleep. Otherwise, you're not saving any information. So make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. Whether you want to be a cross-nighter, sharp. Let's see how it will work out in
the way the students fight against you when you tell them don't cross-night.
Do it and see if it will work. Really learn from your mistakes. I think that's the best way to do it.
And it can unfortunately catch up to you when it matters most.
Yes.
Like imagine you are writing a board exam.
Yay.
And yes, it worked previously. This board exam is written once or twice a year. And it where it matters the most.
True.
And I think to that I also wanted to find out from you, Ntabi, saying when you now add the element of studying and working, where you still have to study, but you have a full-time job that might require overtime from you as well. How do you balance that consistency and that discipline there?
Okay, so I would go back to boundaries, right? So obviously you need to also have boundaries with yourself because now at work, obviously you're working, you want to please your bosses and say, listen, I can still deliver and all of that. But take a step back to say, okay, let's be realistic. Now I have to work and study. I can't say yes to everything. So now when it's 9 to 5, I stick purely just to my 9 to 5. And if I'm working overtime, I add maybe an hour or 2 extra. But outside of that, I cannot extend myself and overextend myself in the workspace. I need to focus on the study, right? So after, let's say, I get to work at 8 and then I leave the office at 5 o'clock. Now it's time for me to focus on studying. I'll get back, I have to cook, and then I have to take a break. Right, cooking is not taking a break, just working. So I will cook, and then after that I have dinner, watching a series or catching up with maybe Bible study or something like that. And then after that, that's when I dedicate maybe 3 or 4 hours of studying, right? So that's looking like maybe at 8 o'clock, and then until 10 o'clock is my cutoff, because I still have to wake up for work, right? And then if maybe I want to sneak in a little bit of 2 hours or 1.5 hours before I wake up for work in the morning, I do that. But then during the week, I don't overextend myself. I understand that my study time do not look like weekend. So during the week, I know minimum is 2 hours, maximum is 2.5. I can't overextend that. So weekends is when I capitalize, I don't touch work. Weekend is purely to catch up on studying. So the full day, I need to study and plan according to that. That's when you go into what are my peak times, what are my slow burn times, and all of that. And then I know that during the week, I'm focusing on 9 to 5, but adding a little bit of study. Yes. But weekends, it's all about me. I need to study.
I love that.
To the point of boundaries, right? I also think it's quite important that you bring up the conversation up front with your managers as well, to actually clarify the fact that you are studying, you know, because I think sometimes managers forget. I don't know how.
Do you forget that?
Your raise or go somewhere where you're not gonna be comfortable, you know, to sleep. And if you're a library person, great. I encourage that, because when you see everybody else lock in, you're also gonna want to lock in. That is positive peer pressure. So also understand your times while yourself and your body. If you know Muti, you like sleeping, Sana. It's not doing. Don't do it.
And accountability as well. The community you created, you guys can sit and study together and hold each other accountable in terms of we study for 25 minutes and then after that we take a break. So having your small community and boundaries also helps really with the environment.
And with what you just said, I just thought, holding each other accountable. And if you use like the strategy of Pomodoro, after 2 hours or 4 sittings, then you have a longer break. And perhaps when you are with other people, use that longer break for you 5 minutes, tell us what you've done in the past 2 hours. Sure. Because that also gives you, I'm going to have to say something. Because sometimes you can think you're studying, and just because we're sitting together doesn't mean all of us are actually doing whatever we should be doing. And just for everybody to say, and of course, this is now also an application of your studying techniques. You see, am I doing it? Am I actually taking in this information? If I can now share it to my peers, or you don't even have to be peers, because you don't have to all be, I think even better if you're studying with people that are not studying the same thing as you. So you give knowledge of engineering, you give knowledge of architecture and whatever, you give knowledge of accounting, because then it is that thing of you explaining to somebody who doesn't understand, and can you simplify it for them? Because when you are studying with people who know, it almost like everybody pretends to grasp on, they're like, we hear what you're getting to. It's like, there's a false like encouragement that happens of like, yes, this, and it was like, no. But with other people, because they generally don't know, so they're waiting for you to simplify it as best as possible. And we on this thing of working and studying and so forth, there's really a fine line of working hard and burning out. And how can students best manage that? And especially this is something that comes up even for overachievers, people who are actually doing well. However, it gets to a point that come exam time, and as much as they're going in with high marks, but they're so burnt out that now the body and everything else gives in. How do students still remain consistent but not exhaust yourself in that process?
I think I'll start with that. Acknowledge that quality over quantity. It's not about the number of hours you study. I can study for 8 hours and not remember anything. And I can study for 2 hours and grasp everything because I was intentional. So that's when you need to apply the intentional study method, where you're going to say, okay, I'm sitting for 2 hours and I'm covering this topic. In this topic, these are my objectives. This is what I'm supposed to learn in this specific study session, right? So you see like how a lecturer is going to prepare slides to say, okay, after this class, you need to know these 3 things, right? So now you're also going to have that objective to say, okay, after I'm done sitting for these 2 hours, I need to know this and this and this, right? Because now in the 2 hours, you are intentional about what you're putting your time in and exactly what are you tackling in your study session. And then when you're done with that, that's when you reward yourself with a break, right? You reward yourself either by walking to McDonald's. I used to reward myself with McDonald's. I had the McDonald's app, Sana. Every time I'm done sitting for 2 hours, I'm clocking in those points and I'm getting a free Big Mac or 10% off on McFlurry, whatever, right? Give yourself that grace of, okay, I did this, let me reward myself, right? To avoid that whole burnout thing. But we need to overcome that emotion and the feeling of, I need to be a perfectionist. You can't be a perfectionist, right? Because now you're going to say, okay, I got these marks, I need to maintain them, this is the standard. I know it's a standard, it's a personal goal, but also not at your expense. Because at the end of the day, God forbid something happens to you, then it's not going to be worth your life. You get me? Like at work, I always tell people that, God forbid you pass away, we're going to advertise the post to say, listen, the role is open, right? So you need to understand that you matter and your mental health matters, because when you're not okay mentally, you will not be at your best in terms of studying. You will not produce those results. And also, it's going to eat at your life, basically, because now you're going to be unhappy. You're not going to be spending time with your family. You're not going to be spending time with the people that actually fill your cup, right? Because you are just trying to say, no, let me actually study. I used to be that person until I crashed out and I had hit a blank page, right? And that was my turning point to say, listen, I need to change something. So acknowledge that you can't always be a perfectionist, but take a break. Taking a break is not being weak. You're not being weak. You're being human. So acknowledge the fact that you need to take a break in order to function, and go write the memo. I used to say that, right? I'm going to write the memo. You know, to write the memo, you need the energy, right? You can't just, go in there with like two hours of sleep.
Yeah. Just to add to that, perfectionism, and I'm not diagnosing it psychoeducation, it's a trauma response. You need to know where it comes from. Go to psych go to the university where they have mental health practitioners to just help you tackle that. Why am I responding with perfectionism? Does that mean that, okay, let me not diagnose psychoeducation, go to psych go see a counselor who will help you to just break that down so you understand yourself honestly, because everyone is going through. Everyone is going through, TikTok, social media might make it seem like everyone is out there, has their lives, accordingly, but we're all going through. So, go seek for help.
Oh, I was just gonna say that the body keeps score, right? The fact that when you're feeling burned out, you feel it somewhere in your body, right? And so one should actually pay attention to what you're feeling in your body. Sometimes for me, I feel it in my shoulders, and that's an indicator that I'm tired. Sometimes I actually feel it in my head, where it's like I can't retain any more information, right? And so to kind of address that, I'll do an active rest, right? Not sit at a desk. Listen to a podcast related to the topic that you're actually studying and clean the house. Right? So you're actually listening to it at the background, but you're not sitting at your desk trying to retain this information, but you're listening to what you're trying to study. So, yeah.
No, I think that's very, very important insights that we've given to many people. And when it comes to leading up to exams, I mean, now you have guys in June, most institutions will be writing exams at the end of the year, depending on if it's a semester module, a year modules. What are some of the common mistakes you think young people make or students make leading up specifically to the exams? I mean, even your mistakes, but what are they?
They're not sleeping. You are not sleeping, like you just want to push and push and push, but without sleeping, because sleep helps you to save the information you studied. If you don't sleep, there is nothing you are really actually putting in your long-term memory.
Yeah.
Like when you go sit in the exam room, you black out, like how Ntali mentioned. So sleep. I also wasn't sleeping, but I managed to pass. I don't know how. It was a pass mark. So, I mean, if I had slept, I would have done better. So sleeping, people are not sleeping. We're not sleeping, and we think that lack of sleep is being effective, or it's a way of managing everything else that I wasn't able to manage the past few weeks. And again, procrastination, like waiting until the last minute to do the thing. That adrenaline, you feel like, yeah, I'll do this, and then you'll crash out, guys. You'll crash out. So you're not sleeping, you have to sleep. Sleep is a must.
And to that point, it actually makes it difficult for you to absorb that information last minute when you like procrastinating, right?
Yeah.
When it's crunch time, now you like cramp pass forget. Now you feeling anxiety, you feeling all these overwhelming feelings, which kind of then hinders you from being able to absorb that information and what you're studying. So I think, yeah, definitely.
And I studied with someone during board exam. They're trying to cheat because they didn't study. So it leads you to doing unethical things. If you're not sleeping or studying, you will cheat, and then that will be it with you and your career. So you have to think of that, really. Avoid the panic solutions. And start studying with time. But please sleep. Sleep.
And this is because you spoke about it and your own from yourself. Best time of the day to study.
I'm gonna go back to that. Listen to your body, right? Because there's many people who are night owls who prefer to work at night, and there's people like me who work at like odd hours of the morning. So the best time to study is like know your body, know when you are most productive, and also if you're a person who gets easily distracted by noise outside, pick the most quietest time at night or early hours of the morning. During the day, if you're honest, there's someone mowing their lawn, there's like birds chirping, dogs are barking, everything is just loud, right? So you need to be able to know, okay, if I easily get distracted, then it's either I have headsets on to study during the day, or I work at hours where it is literally quiet. So it's about listening to your body and knowing when you're most productive. And then you're going to study the topics that are heavy during that time to capitalize on it.
And Rinsuna, what is the one habit that every student should build, if you were to say?
I would definitely say as a postpartum of your tests. I think she mentioned it as well. Once you have attempted a question, attempted a tutorial, an exam, whatever it may be, mark yourself. You cannot fix something that you do not know where you're going wrong, right? So critically analyze what I got right, what did I get wrong, why did I get it wrong, is it a knowledge gap? Keep on asking the questions up until you actually have an answer to why did I get this wrong. So definitely, review your paper.
Even the ones that you write.
Yes.
The ones where you got 30% for.
Review it. Review it. Even the ones that
because you run away from those.
Exactly. So I would definitely say review it.
But you know what's funny with the ones where you got a low mark? Yes. You're gonna look at the paper and even ask yourself, so like you get to
as the lecturer was thinking when they were marking, what are you writing?
What were you thinking? But then now you get to track your thought process to say, okay, this is where I need to fine tune everything.
And as we wrap up, our final question: what is the one study habit that students should immediately stop doing? Yes.
Stop the highlighting. Like do it the first time around, right? But don't do it throughout your studying session. Stop highlighting and start doing active learning. Start applying the concepts that you've actually learned in class, in tutorials, in discussions with your peers. I'll definitely say that. Start the passive learning and start doing that much more.
I would say start being your biggest cheerleader. Right? Because now we are in the perfectionist stage of I need to do everything right, but we don't actually acknowledge when we are putting in the effort. Right? So you need to know that you can achieve anything and everything you want to achieve as long as you put in the work.
Avoiding asking for help. Please ask for help. Speak to your lecturers.
Yes.
Go and ask for help. We didn't wake up knowing. We learned to
All the time. Thank you so much, ladies. This was a great and fruitful conversation that we've had. And I really hope that many of the students, or not even students, but even anybody who is studying will be able to watch this conversation and learn from it. Thank you so very much for joining us for our 4th episode, and we can't wait to see you on the next episode of No-Valo Round Table.